Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta CGH /ʊ.huː.ruː kɛn.jɑː.tɑː born October 26, 1961, is a Kenyan politician who served as the fourth president of Kenya from 2013 to 2022, the son of Jomo Kenyatta, Kenya's first president. He had previously served as deputy prime minister from 2008 to 2013. Kenyatta is married to Margaret Gakuo Kenyatta. Daniel Arap Moi had picked Kenyatta as his preferred successor. However, he was defeated by the then-opposition leader Mwai Kibaki in the 2002 election, and Kibaki was subsequently sworn in as the president. Kenyatta served as a member of parliament MP for Gatunda South from 2002 to 2013, and also as deputy prime minister to Raila Odinga from 2008 to 2013. Currently, he is a member and the party leader of the Jubilee Party of Kenya, whose popularity has since dwindled. Kenyatta was previously a member of the Kenya African National Union, KANU, a political party that had led Kenya to independence in 1963. He resigned from KANU in 2012 and joined the National Alliance, TNA, one of the allied parties that campaigned for his election victory during the 2013 election. He later on went to form a merger with the United Republican Party, URP, led by William Ruto, to form the Jubilee Party. Kenyatta was re-elected for a second and final term in the August 2017 general elections, winning 54% of the popular vote. The win was formally declared on national television by the chairperson of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, IEBC, Wafula Chebukati. However, Uhuru's election was challenged in the Supreme Court of Kenya by his main competitor, Raila Odinga. On September 1st, 2017, the court declared the election invalid and ordered a new presidential election to take place within 60 days from the day of the ruling. A new presidential election was held on October 26th, which he won, with 39.03% electoral voter participation. Early life. Uhuru Kenyatta was born on October 26, 1961, to the first president of Kenya, Jomo Kenyatta, and his fourth wife, Mama Ngina Kenyatta, named Mahoho. The second born in the family, he has two sisters, Christine, born 1953, Ananayo Kabi, born 1963, and a brother, Mahoho Kenyatta, born 1965. His family hails from Kikuyu, a Bantu ethnic group. His given name, Uhuru, is from the Swahili term for freedom, and was given him in anticipation of Kenya's upcoming independence. Uhuru attended St. Mary's School in Nairobi. Between 1979 and 1980, he also briefly worked as a teller at the Kenya Commercial Bank. After attending St. Mary's School, Uhuru went on to study economics, political science, and government at Amherst College in the United States. Upon his graduation, Uhuru returned to Kenya and started a company, Willam Kenya Limited, through which he sourced and exported agricultural produce. Uhuru was nominated to Parliament in 1999. He then became the Minister for Local Government under President Daniel Arap Moi, and, despite his political inexperience, was favored by Moi as a successor. Kenyatta ran as KANU's candidate in the December 2002 presidential election, but lost to the opposition candidate Mwai Kibaki by a big margin. He subsequently became leader of the opposition in Parliament. He backed Honorable Mwai Kibaki for re-election in the December 2007 presidential election and was named Minister of Local Government by former President Mwai Kibaki in January 2008, before being appointed as the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Trade in April 2008 as part of the new coalition government. Subsequently, Uhuru Kenyatta was Minister of Finance from 2009 to 2012, while remaining Deputy Prime Minister. Accused by the International Criminal Court, ICC, of committing crimes against humanity in relation to the violent aftermath of the 2007 election, he resigned as Minister of Finance on January 26, 2012. He was elected as President of Kenya in the March 2013 presidential election, defeating Raila Odinga with a slim majority in a single round of voting. Political life. In the 1997 general election, Uhuru Kenyatta contested for the Gatunda South constituency parliamentary seat, once held by his father, but lost to Moses Mwigia, a Nairobi architect. In 1999, Moi appointed Uhuru to chair the Kenya Tourism Board, a government parastatal. In 2001, he was nominated as a member of parliament and joined the cabinet as Minister for local government. He would also later be elected first vice chairman of KANU. In the 2002 nomination process, which was widely thought as undemocratic and underhand, Moi influenced Uhuru Kenyatta's nomination as KANU's preferred presidential candidate, sparking an outcry from other interested contenders, and a massive exit from the party ensued. This move by the late President Moi was seen as a ploy to install Uhuru as a puppet, so that even in retirement, Moi would still rule the country through Uhuru and presumably insulate himself against the numerous charges of abuse of office that plague his presidency. Uhuru finished second to Mwai Kibaki in the general elections with 31% of the vote. He conceded defeat and took up an active leadership role as leader of the opposition. In January 2005, Uhuru Kenyatta defeated Nicholas Biwott for chairmanship of KANU, taking 2,980 votes among party delegates against Biwott's 622 votes. Uhuru led his party KANU in the referendum campaigns against the draft constitution in 2005, having teamed up with the Liberal Democratic Party, a rebel faction in the Kibaki government, to form the Orange Democratic Movement. The result of this was a vote against the adoption of the draft constitution by a noticeable margin, which was a great political embarrassment to Emilio Mwai Kibaki. In November 2006, Kenyatta was displaced as KANU leader by the late Nicholas Biwott. On December 28, 2006, the High Court of Kenya reinstated Uhuru Kenyatta as KANU chairman. However, further court proceedings followed. On June 28, 2007, the High Court confirmed Kenyatta as party leader, ruling that there was insufficient evidence for a Biwott argument that Kenyatta had joined another party. In the run-up to the 2007 general election, he led KANU to join a coalition called Party of National Unity PNU, with President Mwai Kibaki, who was running for a second term against Raila Odinga. PNU won the controversial 2007 elections, but the dispute over the poll resulted in the 2007-08 Kenyan crisis. Under an agreement between the two parties to end the chaos, Kibaki remained as president in a power-sharing agreement with Raila as prime minister, while Uhuru Kenyatta was Kibaki's choice as deputy prime minister and minister for finance in his shared cabinet slots. On September 13, 2007, Uhuru Kenyatta withdrew from the December 2007 presidential election in favor of Kibaki for re-election. He said that he did not want to run unless he could be sure of winning. Following the election, amidst the controversy that resulted when Kibaki was declared the victor despite claims of fraud from challenger Raila Odinga and his Orange Democratic Movement, Kibaki appointed Kenyatta as Minister for Local Government on January 8, 2008. After Kibaki and Odinga reached a power-sharing agreement, Kenyatta was named Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Trade on April 13, 2008, as part of the Grand Coalition Cabinet. He was the Deputy Prime Minister representing the PNU, while another Deputy Prime Minister, Musalia Mudavadi, represented the ODM. Kenyatta and the rest of the cabinet were sworn in on April 17th. Uhuru Kenyatta was later moved from local government and appointed Minister for Finance on January 23, 2009. During his tenure, he spearheaded a number of reform measures that changed how Treasury and government by extension transact business, such as the Integrated Financial Management Information System, IFMIS, and a fund for the inclusion of the informal sector in the mainstream economy. In 2013, Uhuru Kenyatta was elected as the fourth president of Kenya under the National Alliance, TNA, which was part of the Jubilee Alliance with his running mate William Ruto's United Republican Party, URP. Uhuru and Ruto won 50.07% of votes cast, with closest rivals, Raila Odinga and running mate Kalonzo Musyoka of the Coalition for Reforms and Democracy garnering 42%. Raila Molo Odinga disputed the election results at the Supreme Court, which however held 7-0 that the election of Uhuru was valid and such irregularities as existed did not make a difference to the final outcome. Uhuru Kenyatta was therefore sworn in as president on April 9, 2013. Uhuru ran for president in the elections held on March 4, 2013 and garnered 6,173,433 votes, 50.03%, out of the 12,338,667 votes cast. As this was above the 50% plus one vote threshold, he won the election in the first round, thus evading a runoff between the top two candidates. 49, he was therefore declared the fourth president of the Republic of Kenya by the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, IEBC. According to the IEBC, Raila Odinga garnered 5,340,546 votes, 43.4%, and was thus the second in the field of 8 candidates. CORD, under the leadership of presidential candidate Raila Odinga, lodged a petition with the Supreme Court of Kenya on March 10, 2013, challenging Uhuru's election. On March 30, 2013, Dr. Willie Mutunga, the Chief Justice of Kenya, read a unanimous Supreme Court ruling declaring the election of Uhuru Kenyatta and his running mate William Ruto as valid. On August 11, 2017, the chairman of the IEBC, Wafula Chebukati, announced Uhuru's re-election to a second term in office during the 2017 Kenyan general election, with 54% of the popular vote. This was later contested in court and annulled. Annulment. A second election was required in which Uhuru Kenyatta won with 98% of the vote with a 39% voter turnout. On March 9, 2018, Uhuru Kenyatta agreed on a truce between the opposition leader, Raila Odinga. This action marked the country's watershed moment that redrew its political architecture. On November 27, 2019, Uhuru Kenyatta launched the Building Bridges Initiatives, BBI, in Bomas of Kenya. This is one of the outcomes as a result of the truce with the opposition leader Raila Odinga, as its implementations will foresee some amendments in the Kenyan constitution. International Criminal Court charges. Prior to him becoming president, Kenyatta was named as a suspect of crimes against humanity by the International Criminal Court, ICC, prosecutor Luis Moreno Ocampo, for planning and funding violence in Naivasha and Nakuru. This was in relation to the violence that followed the bungled national elections of December 2007. In furtherance of his political support for Kibaki's PNU at the time, he was accused of organizing a Kikuyu political religious group, the Mungiki, in the post-election violence. Overall, the post-election violence of 2007 is said to have claimed about 1,300 lives. Uhuru maintained his innocence and wanted his name cleared. On March 8, 2011, while serving as minister in Kibaki's government, he was indicted after being summoned to appear before the ICC pretrial chamber. He was to appear at The Hague on April 8, 2011, alongside 5 other suspects. On September 29, 2011, while seeking to exonerate himself, Uhuru Kenyatta put up a spirited fight as he was being cross-examined by ICC Chief Prosecutor Luis Moreno Ocampo in Hague, denying any links with the outlawed Mungiki sect. He said Prime Minister Raila Odinga should take political responsibility for the acts of violence and killings that followed the 2007 presidential elections in Kenya. He told the 3 judges that by telling his supporters election results were being rigged, fanned tensions, and then failed to use his influence to quell the violence that followed the announcement of the 2007 presidential results. Though Uhuru had previously dismissed ICC summons, he changed his decision along the way. Together with his 2 other co-accused suspects, head of civil service, Ambassador Francis Mathora, and former police commissioner Hussein Ali, the trio honored the ICC summons that sought to determine whether their cases met the set standards for international trials. On January 23, 2012, the ICC confirmed the cases against Kenyatta and Mathora, although the charges against Mathora were subsequently dropped. 61 serious concerns about the case have been raised, particularly the nature of the evidence being used against Kenyatta. There are also serious concerns about witness tampering, and indeed, a number of witnesses have disappeared or died, which is a reason cited by the ICC for dropping charges against Mathora. On October 12, 2013 speech to the African Union, in which he said belligerent tone, Uhuru accused the ICC of being a toy of declining imperial powers. On October 31, 2013, the ICC postponed Kenyatta's trial for crimes against humanity by 3 months until February 5, 2014, after the defense had requested more time. On October 8, 2014, Kenyatta appeared before the ICC in The Hague. He was called to appear at the ICC status conference when the prosecution said evidence needed to go ahead with the trial was being withheld. In a speech to the Kenyan parliament, Kenyatta said that he was going to The Hague in a personal capacity, not as president of the country, so as not to compromise the sovereignty of Kenyans. Kenyatta did not speak in court, but denied the charges and comments to journalists as he left the court to catch a flight back home. "We as Kenyans, we know where we came from, we know where we are going, and nobody will tell us what to do," he said. The judges adjourned the hearings and charges were dropped on March 13, 2015. The National Alliance Party, TNA, on May 20, 2012, Uhuru Kenyatta attended the elaborately assembled and much publicized launch of the National Alliance Party in a modern high-tech dome at the Kenyatta International Conference Center. His presence at the TNA launch was a strong indication that he would contest for the party's presidential nomination ticket in his quest for the presidency in the 2013 general elections. The Justice and Constitutional Affairs Minister Eugene Wamalwa and Eldoret North constituency MP William Ruto led more than 70 MPs in attending the function. The Speaker of the East African Legislative Assembly, Abdi Ramadhan, Cabinet Ministers Mohammed Yusuf Haji, Jamlek Irunga Kamau, Dr. Naomi Shaban, Samuel Pagizio, Professor Sam Andre, and Dr. Muhammad Kudi, and MPs Charles Shariat Keeter, Aden Bear Dwali, and Mohammed Mela Muhammad also attended the event. Speeches at the launch revolved around the need for a thriving economy, the need for the rights of people of all classes in society to be championed, the need for a peaceful coexistence, the need for visionary and committed leadership, the need for transformative leadership, the need for a youthful crop of committed professionals in leadership, the need for free and fair nomination and election processes in the general election, the need for an economically empowered youth, and a call to bring an end to divisive and sectarian interests in politics to safeguard Kenya from sliding to dictatorship. Marshall Y. Kenda was the Director of Communications and Secretary of Arts and Entertainment of the National Alliance from April 2012 to August 2013, and he led the Media and Communications Department of the party during the 2013 elections. By-election, September 17, 2012. On September 17, 2012, the National Alliance Party had its first real test when it contested various civic and parliamentary positions in a by-election that covered 17 seats in total, 3 parliamentary and 14 civic. Overall, 133,054 votes were cast in the by-elections, and TNA led the pack after it garnered 38.89%, or 51,878 votes, followed by Orange Democratic Movement with 33.7%, or 44,837 votes. Party of National Unity with 4.46%, or 5,929 votes. Wiper Democratic Movement with 4.44%, or 5,912 votes, and United Democratic Forum with 4.15%, or 5,520 votes. TNA won civic and parliamentary seats in 7 different counties, while its closest challengers, ODM, won seats in 4 counties. The National Alliance Party remained a strong contender for following year's general elections, having received major defections from other big political parties of Kenya. The successful election of TNA's main candidates, Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto, continued to enhance TNA's viability. In January 2013, however, TNA merged with URP to form the Jubilee Alliance Party, JP. 2013 presidential elections. Uhuru Kenyatta's party, the National Alliance, TNA, joined William Ruto's United Republican Party, URP, Najib Balala's Republican Congress Party, RCP, and Charity Ngilu's National Rainbow Coalition Party to form the Jubilee Alliance Coalition. Various opinion polls prior to the election placed Uhuru as one of the main contenders, and his Jubilee Alliance as among the most popular. The other formidable coalition was the Coalition for Reform and Democracy, CORD, led by Raila Odinga. In undercover video footage, released in a BBC News report on March 19, 2018, the managing director of Cambridge Analytica, a political consultancy that worked to elect Donald Trump in the 2016 American presidential election, boasted that his firm had run successful presidential election campaigns in Kenya in 2013 and 2017, though he did not name Kenyatta explicitly. "We have rebranded the entire party twice, written the manifesto, done research, analysis, messaging," Turnbull said of the campaigns that his company managed in Kenya. "I think we wrote all the speeches and we staged the whole thing, so just about every element of this candidate." A Jubilee Party vice president admitted on March 20th, 2018, that the party had hired an affiliate of Cambridge Analytica for branding in the 2017 election. As per the IEBC's official results, Uhuru got 6,173,433 of the 12,221,053 valid votes cast ahead of the second-place Raila Odinga, who garnered 5,340,546, 43.7%. Uhuru's result was 50.51% of the vote and was above the 50% plus one vote threshold set out in the 2010 Constitution, thus making him the president-elect. Results dispute. There was some discontent with the official results, as would be expected in such a hotly contested election, especially in Raila Odinga's strongholds. The inordinate delay in releasing the results and the technical failure of some safeguards and election equipment deployed by the IBC did not help perception that the election had been less than free and fair. Further, an exit poll conducted by UCSD Professor Clark Gibson and James Long, assistant professor and University of Washington, suggested that neither Odinga nor Kenyatta had attained the 50% plus one vote threshold. Analysts who have contended that even though elections for 5 other levels were held in Kenya at the same time, their national turnout levels and total vote tallies were about 16% less than the presidential total. E.g., while 10.6 million voters elected candidates for member of the National Assembly, the Senate, and the 47 gubernatorial seats, almost 2 million more voted in the presidential election. This has fueled concern and speculations of vote manipulation in President Kenyatta's favor. 2 groups disputed these results and filed petitions challenging various aspects of it at the Supreme Court of Kenya to contest the result. The groups were the Coalition for Reform and Democracy, CORD, led by Raila Odinga, and the Africa Center for Open Governance, AFRICOG. Uhuru Kenyatta and his running mate were respondents in these cases, and were represented by Fred Natia and Catwood Kigan, respectively. Supreme Court Judgment. The Supreme Court judges unanimously upheld the election of Uhuru Kenyatta as Kenya's 4th president after rejecting Raila Odinga's petition in a verdict delivered on Saturday, March 30th, 2013. Chief Justice William Mutunga, in his ruling, said the elections were indeed conducted in compliance with the Constitution and the law. U.S. President Barack Obama and First Lady Michelle Obama greet President Uhuru Kenyatta in the Blue Room during a U.S.-Africa Leaders Summit dinner at the White House, August 5, 2014. Presidential swearing-in at Kasarani Stadium. After the Supreme Court dismissed the petitions, the swearing-in ceremony was held on April 9, 2013 at the Moi International Sports Center, Kasarani, Nairobi, in accordance to Article 141 of the Constitution, which stipulates that in case the Supreme Court upholds a victory of the president-elect, the swearing will take place on the first Tuesday following the 7th day following the date on which the court renders a decision declaring the election to be valid. Presidency, 2013 to 2022. Presidential standard of Uhuru Kenyatta. During his inaugural speech, Uhuru promised economic transformation through Vision 2030, unity among all Kenyans, free maternal care, and that he will serve all Kenyans. He also promised to improve the standards of education in Kenya. During the Madaraka Day celebrations, a national holiday celebrated to the country's independence on June 1st, President Uhuru Kenyatta announced free maternal care in all public health facilities, a move that was welcomed by many Kenyans, 86, 87, 88. On September 1st, 2017, the Supreme Court of Kenya nullified the re-election of Uhuru Kenyatta after the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, IEBC, had announced the winner on August 8, 2017. As a result of that, there was a need for the election to be held once again. It was scheduled for October 26, 2017. After the re-election, Uhuru Kenyatta emerged the winner once again. In 2021, drought is again taking its toll. According to the UN, more than 465,000 children under the age of 5 are malnourished. Food insecurity affects more than 2.5 million people in the country. Uhuru Kenyatta speaks of a national disaster. However, he is criticized for the slow humanitarian response and lack of planning. The Mukuru Kwa Njenga slum in Nairobi is being razed in October 2021 to make way for the widening of a road, leaving 40,000 people homeless overnight, with no offer of alternative accommodation. Challenges. The major challenges his administration faced included high cost of living, rising public debt, a high public wage bill, and allegations of corruption among people within his government. The 2017 general election and its violence is also a challenge that threatened not only his presidency, but also the future of the East African nation. Public wage bill. The high public wage was a headache to Uhuru's administration. At the start of his term, the president decried the high wage bill, which was at 12% of GDP, as against a recommended 7%. In 2015, the president stated that the wage bill was at 50% of the total annual revenue collection of government, in an attempt to curtail it. The president announced a pay cut for himself and his cabinet in March 2014, reducing his salary by 20%. It was hoped that the high earners in government would follow suit, but this did not materialize. Another measure was the newly created Constitutional Salaries and Remuneration Commission, which it was hoped would regularize salaries, but has faced an uphill battle against members of parliament, who wish to protect their earnings and labor unions. The president thereafter ordered an audit of the government payroll, so as to flush out ghost workers. The audit identified 12,000 ghost workers. In the meantime, lower cadre government workers have demanded pay rises, more so by teachers and health workers, who have gone on strikes at various times to demand the increase. The strikes in the health sector mainly affect the counties, Kenya's other level of government, as it is managed by the devolved units. Anti-corruption efforts. On June 28, 2018, Kenyatta declared a major crackdown on corruption and stated that no one was immune from corruption charges in Kenya. Kenyatta also stated his own brother Mahoho, a director in a company that had been accused in Parliament of importing contraband sugar, should be charged if there is clear evidence against him. On August 11, 2018, Mohammed Abdallah Swazuri, the chairman of National Land Commission, and Atanas Kariuki Mena, managing director of the Kenya Railways Corporation, were among 18 officials, business people, and companies arrested on corruption charges involving land allocation for the $3 billion flagship Nairobi-Mombasa Railway. On December 7, 2018, Joe Sang, the CEO of the Kenya Pipeline Company, KPC, was arrested with 4 other senior officials in connection with the loss of an unspecified amount of money during construction of an oil jetty in the western city of Kisumu. On July 22, 2019, Kenya's Finance Minister Henry Rotich became the country's first sitting minister to be arrested for corruption. 27 other people were arrested with Rotich as well. On December 6, 2019, federal authorities arrested Nairobi Governor Mike Sonko on corruption charges. On January 14, 2020, Kenyatta replaced Rotich with Labor Secretary Yuka Yatani. On May 28, 2020, a breakthrough in Kenyatta's pledge to combat corruption in Kenya occurred when 40 civil servants and 14 private sector officials, including National Youth Service (NYS) Director General Richard Mbai, were arrested on charges related to the National Youth Service scandal. On December 9, 2020, it was confirmed by the Kenyan News Agency that the National Anti-Corruption Campaign Steering Committee (NACSC) was in the process of strengthening its collaboration with other crime-fighting agencies, including those in Kenyatta's government. The group had National Government Administrative Officers (NGO) in hopes they would support the County Anti-Corruption Civil Oversight Committee (CACIC). The day before, Winnie Guchu, who serves in Kenyatta's government as the Chief Administrative Secretary, (SAIS), in the Office of the Attorney General and the Department of Justice, confirmed in a press conference that she had met with members of CACIC to strengthen relations. On December 11, 2020, the Kenyan government's Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, (EACC), released a statement confirming that Robert Pavel Oimik, the Director General of Kenya's Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority, was arrested and taken into police custody on charges of demanding 200,000 Kenyan shillings, $1,795, to approve the reopening of a petrol station that had been shut down over violations. On December 21, 2020, Nairobi County Assembly Speaker Benson Matura replaced Sonko, who was removed from office 4 days prior, as governor of Nairobi. In October 2021, his name appeared in the Pandora Papers, among more than 330 current and former politicians and senior officials using hidden accounts in tax havens. He and 6 family members, including his mother, a brother, and 2 sisters, have at least $30 million in several offshore companies. He also owns a secret foundation in Panama, holding over $30 million. Foreign relation